welcome you all on Sunday afternoon for really a momentous occasion. And you will hear all about it. Jai Jinendra, Jai Sri Krishna, Jai Swaminarayan, Sat Sri Akal, Hari Om, and if I forgot something, Namaste. Ram Kabir, thank you. You know why do we have wives, right? Very hearty welcome to you all on this occasion of honoring Professor Jagdish Bhai Seth for Padm Bhushan Award. Thank you, Professor Seth, for accepting our invitation and being here so soon after the announcement that was made on January 26th. Thank you, Sarvamangal Family Trust, Manuban Rikaben's family, to sponsor this event. And thank you, Jain of Southern California, the President, Dr. Jag Shah, to allow us to host the event here. And to Jain and Anikant Community Center to participate. We will now begin with recorded prayer done by late Jag Shah, and she is mother of Rikaben Shah and relative of Professor Jagdish Bhai Seth. Narendra Bhai.
Om Sri Chitari Mangalam, Ariyanta Mangalam, Siddha Mangalam, Savu Mangalam, Kevli Panantodamo Mangalam, Chitari Logutama, Ariyanta Logutama, Siddha Logutama, Savu Logutama, Kevli Pananto, Damo Logutama, Chitari Sharanam Paujami, Ariyanta Sharanam Paujami, Siddha Sharanam Paujami, Savu Saranam Paujami, Kevli Pananto, Damo Saranam Paujami, Char Mangli, Char Uttam, Char Saranalaya Narjeya, Bhausagarma na bude teya, Sakal Karamano Ane Anta, Moksha Tana Sukle Ananta, Bhav Tarine Je Gunangai, Te Jiv Tarine Moksha Ma Jai, Sansar Mai Saranachar, અવર શરણને કોઈ જે ભવી પ્રાણી આદરે તેને અક્ષય અવિચળ પદ હોય અંગૂઠે અમૃત વસે લબ્ધિ તણા ભંડાર ગુરુ ગૌતમ સ્વામીને સમરીએ સદાય મનવંચિત ફળદાતાર પિંગલ પડ્યા પારસી પડ્યા પડ્યા જ્યોતિષ ચંદ એક નવકાર મંત્ર પડ્યા પછી નેત નેત કરો આનંદ જય જિનેન્દ્ર દેવ કૃપાળુ दया माता तमारा शरणा आभव परभव भव भव ओझो दान दीजिए शियल पाड़िए तप तपिए भली भली भावनाओं भाविए तो वेला वेला मुक्तिना सुखने पामिए शांतिना प्रार्थना करे पारसनाथ पार उतारे महावीर स्वामी मोक्षगामी गौतम स्वामी केवल ज्ञानी ओम शांति शांति शांति.
Thank you very much. You can have lights and can I have my presentation? And this is not fine. I have put together history of these awards given out by Government of India for the benefit of everybody. I hope, I'm sure many of you, most of you might be aware, but yeah, thank you. It was instituted in 1954, January. There are four main, remember these are civilian, there are other awards also. And they kind of get in between in terms of the ranks. But these are the four civilian highest: Bharat Ratna, Padm Bhushan, Padm Bhushan, and Padma Shri. And we incidentally do have Padma Shri here with us. They are given for distinguished service of a high order without distinction of race, occupation, position, or sex. The criteria include service in any field, including service rendered by government servants, including doctors and scientists, thank God, but excludes those working in the public sector undertakings. The process: who, when, how. Committees appointed by Prime Minister of India, they consider recommendations submitted between May 1st and September 15 every year. Who can give the recommendations? Literally anybody. Governments, ministries, governors, previous Bharat Ratna and Padma Vibhushan awardees, not others, but those two. Member of Parliament and private individuals like you and me. They are announced on Republic Day, 26 January each year, and are given later by President of India. I went and found some numbers. For the benefit of us about so far how many, etc. As of last year, 1,254 individuals, including 96 NRIs, have received Padma Bhushan awards across the world. And going from 2010 to 2019, I also looked at how many people from the United States have been given these awards. 4 of 43, 0 of 31, 4 of 28, 3 of 23, 2 of 24, 4 of 20, 1 of 19, 0 of 7 in 17, only 1 of 9 in 18, and 1 of 14 in 2019. And I'm sure you want to know 2020, but I'd like to keep that a suspense unless some speakers behind me tells, or else I will tell you what happened last year or this year. How does the award look? I had never idea or seen or looked at it. But this is what it reads on two sides. The front side, the upper side, it's a centrally located lotus flower that's embossed and the text Padma written in Devanagari script above and Bhushan below the lotus. And if you turn it around, the reverse is a platinum state emblem of India placed in the center with the national motto of India, Satyameva Jayate, truth alone triumphs in the script. And this is how it looks. This is the front, and this is the back. And this and the next slide are courtesy of Jag Shah, who is a Jain community member and a public relations officer and professor. While you still wait for the president to give you the award, we have this for you. With that, I will now invite President of Jain Center of Southern California, Dr. Jag Shah, for his remarks, and of course he will include honoring all the dignitaries who are present here. Jag Shah.
Jai Jinendra and Jai all. Our dignitaries here, starting with Professor Dr. Jagdish Bhai Sheikh. We are lucky to have last year's honoree Padm Shri Ganpat Bhai Patel sitting next to him. We have Mayor of Circular City, Naresh Bhai Solanki. We have past President of Jaina, Prembhai Jain, Manibhai Mehta. I don't think any other past president. And our current President of Jaina, Mahesh Bhai Vadar, and all our distinguished guests, including our sponsor for today's event, Manubhai and Jag Shah. Thank you all for being here. On behalf of Jain Center of Southern California, our executive committee and our board of directors, I would say we are very proud that one of our members, when I say our member, Jagdish Bhai is our life member of our Jain community. He was here from 1984 to 91. He became Jain, even before we had our Jain Center temple, he was here. And since then, he is our Jain Center life member. So I would say one of our members is bestowed with the highest honor of Padm Bhushan and by our Indian government. We are honored that Jagdish Bhai and Madhuben have agreed to be with us to celebrate and honor him as one of the first organizations honoring him. So that's our distinguished honor. Now you know, Jains are not usually getting involved in academia, but he is our crown jewel. Jain, with his honor, not only Jain community, but our Gujarati community and our Indian community in the United States, Northern America, we are honored. Jagdish Bhai, born in Burma, fleeing from Japanese invasion, immigrated to United States. Coming to USA was not only his dream come true, but he also helped many others to realize their dream come true. He is marketing guru and is considered authority in marketing and consumer behavior. His in-depth study, research and knowledge of company, consumer and customer behavior is unparalleled. He is not only a scholar and researcher, but is a great educator. 64 graduates have earned their PhD degree under him. He also has a sharp analytical mind, and his books, The Rule of Three and 4 A's of Marketing, are very popular amongst businesses. He has contributed and served community here in the United States and around the world in many different fields, including education, administration, professional, public, and philanthropic fields. He has written about 33. You want me to hold off until you turn it on? If you can hear him, oh, now you can hear me, yes. He has written about 33 books and published about 300 publications. He has worked with many large national and international companies. If I start naming them, when I was looking at his CV, it's 38-page long CV. If I start doing it, we will be here until late night. So I will short it that he has worked with and helped many companies as a consultant or advisor, including Bechtel, Monsanto. I'm just naming few. General Mills, ExxonMobil, Edison of New York, Eli Lilly, Merck, Pfizer, Ernst & Young, Indian companies, Tata Aditya, Birla and Wipro. He's still on the board for Wipro, very close friend of Aziz Premji. He has also worked as government advisor for United States and Singapore. Now about philanthropy. Nothing is more than binding than giving back to the relationship. That's what Jagdish Sheth and Madhuben Sheth's Family Philanthropic Trust, that's their motto. And they have donated to more than 50 community, academic and healthcare foundations. He is one of those outstanding immigrants who have contributed in the growth of American economy. And I applaud what Indian government has done to bestow him with one of these highest award. And he has also been awarded many awards by many companies in the United States. But I think, looking at how much he has contributed to the economy of United States and around the world, he deserves a big award like this from United States government too. Now Madhuben has supported him, stayed with him, stood by shoulder to shoulder, and as we know, nobody can be successful without having a successful or strong woman behind him. So credit goes to Madhuben too. And at the end, what I want to say about Jagdish Bhai is that a positive thinker always sees invisible, feels intangible, and achieves the impossible. That's what our Jagdish Bhai is. And what my impression with him and my interaction with him is always calm, cool, and pleasant. And that reminds me that a coin always makes sound, but the currency notes are always silent, and that's what he is. Now I would like to invite Mahesh Bhai Wadar to speak on behalf of Jaina, to recognize Jagdish Bhai on behalf of Jaina and Anekant Community Center. Mahesh Bhai, please. Please give a big round of applause to Jagdish Bhai Sheth and Indian government for recognizing the right person at the right time. Thank you again. Jai Jain.
Thank you, Jai. Jai Janendra and Pranam to all. The entire Jain Samaj globally is proud of extraordinary achievement of Professor Jagdish Bhai Sheth, the recipient of Padm Bhushan Award. Jayesh Bhai said everything about Jagdish Bhai, and I think he needs a standing ovation. Please. I am very honored for dual privilege to extend congratulations to Padm Bhushan Professor Jagdish Sheth, not only on my behalf and my family's behalf, but also on behalf of entire Jain community in North America. As President of Jaina, Federation of Jain Association in North America, and also as the President of Anekant Community Center. Anekant Community Center does humanitarian services globally. Your Padma Bhushan Award is an extraordinary achievement, and we are all very proud of you, Jagdish Bhai. It feels great to know that Government of India looks at the work done by Indians around the world and recognize them appropriately. We obviously appreciate your contribution to Jain Center of Atlanta and Jaina. We also are thankful for you for promoting Jain studies, education at Emory University in Atlanta. We will be honored if you continue to give guidance to us in the future in academia, marketing, and so on. Congratulations again, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak on behalf of Jain and Anakan Community Center. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Can I please have the lights of the house, please? I'm going to call upon several people to come on stage. We're trying to do something a little bit differently to save time. We're going to honor him with plaques and shawl and all at the same time, one by one, right here on stage. So please come on stage once we hear your name. Professor Jagdish Bhai Madhuve, please. Manubhai and Rikaben Shah, and also Ilaben and Dr. Gununbhai Mehta, President of Jain Center, Dr. JCSC Shah and Namilaben Shah, Indo-American Senior Heritage President Jagdish Bhai and his wife, Mayor of City of Cerritos, Nareshbhai Solanki, and last but not least, my better half, Kinna Gandhi Shah. And we would have loved Mrs. Wadar, but she's not here. So we have plaques and proclamation that we will be giving on behalf of Jain Center of Southern California, Federation of Jain Associations in North America, and Anakan Community Center. They all read the same. I will read one for you. Sure. And Padma Shri Ganpat Bhai Patel and Mrs. Patel, please join us. This reads, Federation Jaina honors 2020 Padm Bhushan awardee Professor Jagdish Shah for his contribution to academia, government, industry, and communities around the world. February 16, 2020, Buena Park, California. And Rupesh Sheth, by the way, how did I miss that? Rupesh, come on up. Rupesh Shah. Actually, we want you to give. All right. So now, please start, JS and yes, I know. Very proud. So that's on behalf of Jain Center of Southern California. Mahesh Bhai will give on behalf of Jaina. And this is on behalf of Anakan Community Center. Mayor, sir, would you want to read or you want me to read or?
You go ahead and read.
All right. Thank you very much for that honor. This is a proclamation from City of Cerritos. Whereas the City of Cerritos takes great pleasure in congratulating Dr. Jagdish Shah for being awarded the 2020 Padm Bhushan Award by the Government of India. And whereas a special event presented by JCSC, Jaina, ACC and community leaders will be held to honor Dr. Jagdish Shah on Sunday, February 16, 2020 at the Jain Center in Buena Park. And whereas the Padm Bhushan Award is India's highest civilian award for non-residential Indians for literature and education. And whereas Dr. Jagdish Shah received the Padm Bhushan Award in recognition of his contributions to academia, industry, government, and communities around the world. And whereas Dr. Jagdish Shah is a professor, renowned scholar, published author, and internationally recognized thought leader. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Naresh Solanki, on behalf of the Cerritos City Council, do hereby congratulate Dr. Jagdish Shah and on being honored with the 2020 Padm Bhushan Award, proclaim the 16th day of February 2020 Mayor Naresh Solomon. And now I call upon another Jagdish Bhai, this time Jagdish Purohit, his wife and Dr. Mehta. They are honoring Dr. Jagdish Seth on behalf of Indo-American Senior Heritage, and I'm sure many of you are members of that. Yes. And now I have a last task. As we all agree, nothing gets done if the spouse doesn't support. So, to honor Madhubay, I'm going to request Rikaben to give a shout. Let's have a good picture and then we can move on. No. Okay. Right, yes. Thank you all. We have a couple of more speeches before we go to listen to Professor. However, does anybody have an idea about the result or score for 2020? People have been awarded Padm Bhushan this year. Only 2 out of them are non-resident Indians. And from the US, it's only Professor Jagdish Shah from the Jain. The other NRI is from Bangladesh, and it's a posthumous award. So I went through the names of every single Padm Bhushan awardee from 1955. To the best of my knowledge, Professor Seth is scoring another first. That's another first check. Thank you to bring the honor to us. Moving on, a long-time associate of Seth family, Professor of Management at California Polytechnic University, Professor Nirmal Bhai Sethia. I'll ask him to tell us about Professor Seth. Maybe he'll tell us something that we don't know.
Good afternoon. At the outset, I wish to acknowledge and thank Manubhai and Jag Shah for sponsoring this event, the Jain Center for hosting it, and Dr. Jag Shah for invitation to speak. And in an odd way, I also thank my better half Tara for this opportunity. She was the one who was supposed to speak, but due to a serious elbow injury she suffered yesterday, she is unable to join us, so I am here to have him. I feel truly privileged to have this opportunity to say a few words of tribute for Professor Shah as we felicitate him on this very special occasion and as a fellow academic. For someone who has received so many awards and honors over the last half a century, this occasion still stands out. Because in other instances, he has been recognized by his peers or academic profession or local communities. But in this instance, he has been honored on behalf of the Indian nation. Jagdish, we congratulate you, we salute you. I see him as uniquely deserving of this great honor. The essence of his uniqueness is that he combines many different facets of human excellence that do not commonly go together. My words reflect what I have seen from many different vantage points over the last 35 years. Since I must be brief, I will highlight just one aspect of his uniqueness. Academics become known for many things, but philanthropy is usually not one of them. In Jagdish, we have an extraordinary accomplished academic who is not only a philanthropist, but a truly change-maker philanthropist. One channel of his generosity is the Shah Foundation, which offers funding in 3 areas. Knowledge creation, which means support for faculty and students at several institutions in the US and India. Knowledge dissemination, which is production and distribution of videos in which leading marketing experts share their knowledge, and distribution of several marketing journals to close to 100 developing countries. Knowledge recognition, sponsorship of numerous awards given to major scholars and also to emerging scholars. The other channel of his generosity is the Shah Family Foundation, which has been supporting a wide range of non-profit entities, including community organizations and educational institutions. And here we can see some more personal connections through 3 examples, because the list is so long, as we already heard. If we were to do that, we'll be here for a long time. So, one is the level of support Jagdish and Madhuben have given over the years to the Jain community organizations, and we did hear some of it today. Another is the faculty award they have established at the USC Marshall School of Business last year. And finally, a personal connection for Tara and myself at Cal Poly Pomona, where, as many of you know, they have been one of the leading sponsors of the Ahimsa Center, established by Tara about 16 years ago. The center's inaugural conference was named after them. I will conclude with the words Tara and I had used some time ago while celebrating his 80th birthday. May you continue for years to come in good health and high spirits your life journey of enriching the lives of those who are fortunate to know you, transforming the life of others who are exposed to your gift of intellect, and touching the lives of many more who benefit from your generosity. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirmal Bhai, and all the speakers for really respecting the time limits that we had discussed. While the next is a video about Professor Seth, and Narendra Bhai gets ready for the video. You want some more statistics? Professor Jagdish Bhai Seth is the 33rd United States citizen to receive Padm Bhushan Award. And out of the other 32, I'll give you 3 names that you will be familiar with. Does anybody remember Richard Attenborough? Yes. Gandhi movie? He was given, I think, in 2007 or 8. And does anybody know Bill and Melinda Gates? They both got them on in 2017. With that, Narendra and Manu Bhai, please join. We will do the video and then Manu will talk more about Professor Seth, and then it will be our time to listen to him. Thank you.
It's a blessing to be 80 and to be so much in demand. It is wonderful to see your boundless energy and ability to cover such distances. That sets you apart and would make you the envy of many.
Jagdish Sheth is a man for all seasons. He modestly describes himself in his autobiography as an accidental scholar. Now, he's certainly a scholar, but he's also much more. He's an educator, an author, a thought leader, a change agent, and an entrepreneur, to mention just a few of the fields where he's had a seminal influence.
The decade of the 80s in my own personal life probably was major transformation. I had come back from Denmark and suddenly my whole outlook on the world had changed now. I was beginning to understand changing demographics in America. It was a totally different world.
જગદીશભાઈને સાંભળ્યા પછી એમ લાગે કે ગુજરાતની જે વિકાસ યાત્રા છે એ એમના વિચારોથી કેટલી બધી નિકટ છે.
Program is designed to honor exceptional marketers and managers. And today I'm speaking with Jag Shah. For 40 years, I've been seeing in the future the best trend has been in the changing demographics of this country. The first one is aging of America. The median age of America is rising every year. The baby boomers are all retiring now. The numbers are staggering, 10,000 retirees every day in this country for the next 15-20 years. I call the rise of the new middle class in India as the call center couple. Who is a call center couple? Husband and wife both are college educated, which is very easy in India because you stay at home and the cost of going to college is just like cost of going to high school.
Good afternoon. Sorry.
Which means 6 decades of my life were in the 20th century. And my future life is now in the 21st century. So I have one foot in the 20th century, another foot being planted in the 21st century. I find 21st century even more exciting and more dramatic, both for world events as well as in my own personal life.
Good afternoon, Jain, friends, family members. My sister Madhuben and brother-in-law Jagdish Bhai, we call him Jijaji. All of you know Dr. Seth as the professor, renowned scholar, recognized leader, competitive strategist, and geopolitical analyst, and so on and on and on. Over the 30 years or more, we know him differently. He is a mentor, a role model, a wonderful family man who excites and electrifies all around him from his days in many universities in India, here in USA and around the world, to our family reunion, Jain temples, corporate suites, and writing books for the business world. Dr. subtle teaching. If you take a human being, mentor, and nurture him or her, the value add is infinite. There is no upper limit of human potential. There is no resources as powerful as the human resource. Every ordinary person can produce extraordinary results. Me and my wife Rika are two of these common people who are learning and practicing every day. Thank you, Jagdish Bhai. Over the years, I have learned that displacement in life builds character and inner strength if you survive. For Jagdish Bhai, childhood in Burma, at age 2.5, 1941, when Japanese occupied Burma, they left Burma to Kutch at age 8. From Kutch, he moved to Madras University in South India, to East Coast at Pittsburgh, New York, Boston, Midwest at Urbana-Champaign, University of Illinois, New York, at Los Angeles, at USC, and finally in the South at Atlanta, Emory University. Each location, Jagdish Bhai, you are leaving big footprints for the followers, while Jagdish Bhai, you are becoming larger than life character. I don't know how we are doing time, but okay, so I'll finish it up fast. Finally, in 1938, the world knew famous jet, the Jaguar car. 1938, said family was welcoming another jet. Jagdish Bhai said, thank you.
Beautiful, thank you very much. All right, Professor, take this back. Let's please bring out his presentation.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Yes. More importantly, can you see me also? That's the joke of short people, okay? I do want to first of all thank many people before I get into my presentation. I would like to thank, obviously, most importantly, my own wife. Madhu, without her support, she gave up her career to come and marry me in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Married with no parents on either side, very humble beginning. We have been married 57 years. And without her support, she is the backbone in the family, and in fact, all generations. And she is the one who engages me into Jainism much more than I thought I would be. She was very active in the Jain Center of Southern California. She is one of the founders of the Jain Center actually in Atlanta, donating the land and creating the center, creating the temple, eventually participating. She has sacrificed more for our religion and faith than anybody that I know. So thank you. I do want to thank Manu Bhai and Rika Ben. Not only they are great people, but good friends. Over the time, I've admired both of them for their tenacity, intellect, and not only just supporting, but here is the ultimate thing you can do for friends. They drove in the morning all the way to San Diego, drove us back over here. I thought I would just take an Uber like anybody else. They said, no, we would come and pick you up. And they've been a major supporter of this event itself. So thank you, Rika and the whole staff handling the process. I do want to thank Jag Shah as president of Jain Center of Southern California. He has been involved heavily. Narendra Bhai Maniar in the back on all the audio-visual stuff. So the amount of time and effort they have put to organize is not easy. So I really want to thank them also for creating this event and recognizing me. And of course, Jaina. Jaina is the true federation. It is absolutely incredible that we all support Jaina. We have several Jaina presidents here. And of course, Mahesh Bhai gave a great tribute. And we are all very fond of Jaina in terms of supporting. Its future is bright, especially for the next generation, who we are losing out to more the schools and colleges. Young people are as interested today in Jainism than ever before. And I'll make one comment. Jainism, like Buddha, Sikhism, used to be a footnote religion in academic writings of religions of India. They will write one paragraph and say, go to this particular book, Max Muller, whatever it is for Jainism, and you read that. Today, Jainism is becoming mainstream. The change in the demographics of this country, the whole emphasis shifting away from looking at outside world to find happiness and meaning. People are now searching for meaning inside themselves, and that is exactly where Jainism helps us quite a lot. Sustainability is a major platform for investment nowadays, and again that is where Jainism excels in the three principles under which Jainism is founded, most important being obviously ahimsa. So I want to thank all of you before I forget. Now my presentation. Before I start formal presentation, I want to talk about my name. I came in 1961 as a foreign graduate student. Shri Sethi is here. I was the first Indian who met me actually in Pittsburgh. In 1961 I started. 63 I became a professor at Columbia University. And they don't know how to pronounce our names. So I had colleagues, all American, all white, and typically saying, we don't know to call you Jagdish, etc. So we'll call you Jag, like in Jaguar. Which is why this connection of 1938 model, that is still working, by the way, as I'm still working. Engine is rebuilt, obviously. Transmission is leaking in places. But checking along still, pretty much, which is interesting. But they call me Jag, as in Jaguar, which has become my branding now. And I always dreamt of having a Jaguar. And about 21 years ago, when I turned 60, I had the most pleasant surprise in my life. I don't count my birthdays. I'm from Burma as a refugee. My generation didn't think about birthday celebrations. I woke up in the morning in Atlanta to get my newspaper Saturday morning, usually around Labor Day weekend, turn around and saw this beautiful Jaguar, top of the line XJ model, even the color I like, parked in the driveway with a handwritten license plate, Jag, happy 60th birthday. Isn't that nice? That was from my daughter, Reshma Shah, who most of you know, and my son Rajan and their spouses. It turned out to be a rental car. So I'm still looking for my Jaguar. I will be happy to be adopted by anybody as a parent or a grandparent. I don't care. So long as I get my Jaguar. So, the presentation I'm going to make is very fascinating about the repositioning happening right in front of our eyes about India's future. You will hear President Trump going to India February 24-25. It's a major strategic initiative, and obviously the two countries are aligning in a way that was never imaginable during the Cold War days, because India became a non-aligned nation. Three leaders of the world decided they would create a third front, primarily non-aligned. Most of the ex-colonies and emerging markets kind of stuff, and fascinating change that's taking place. We'll talk about that, about the future positioning of India and how strategic India as a nation is going to become. There are some challenges in the process, so let me go over quickly so we have more time for questions and answers. So India and the New World Order, that's the title of the presentation. How will India become strategic globally? So my first slide primarily talks about the old order. After World War II, the old order was pretty much created by having a trilateral or a tripod in many ways. Western Europe, 12 countries, common market, which is now the European Union, North America, Canada and America, and Japan is a late entrant, and they control the world, everything. This was in place very well. 75% of the GDP of the world was concentrated in these 15 nations, which is fascinating. 45% of the world trade was in these nations would have been higher, except that the former colonies in Africa, in India, etc., or Latin America were raw material resources, agricultural, industrial raw materials, and they still had to supply. All of them were now aging. The key problem among all these nations is that they are aging. Japan today is aging at a level where they cannot replace themselves. Every month there will be fewer Japanese men than last month. There is no point of return. They did not use immigration strategy to create sort of a population growth. So Japanese are definitely in a declining population, and they are struggling about healthcare obligations, typically like every nation. Germany is equal. Number of deaths equals the number of births primarily, but they are going to decline also. We are somewhat better off because we still have a strong immigration wherever it comes from. We are about 1.6 children per woman, and it's below the replacement rate of 2.1. Lowest rates in the world are surprisingly in Spain, 1.4 children, or in Italy, 1.6 or 1.5, something like that. These are Catholic countries. Aging is common in Russia. Sweden is also aging, and they are desperate for economic growth, which only comes now from emerging economies like China, India, and now Africa will come in a very big way. I have a major presentation about the rise of Africa with the same excitement in the second half of this century as we had the rise of China, for example, and to some extent India. So this was fine. The world was in harmony because America defeated both Germany on the one hand and Japan on the other hand, so they could impose their value system. Created organizations like the United Nations after World War II, World Bank, IMF, International Monetary Fund. Everything was harmonized politically, economically, and militarily. The world was stable, which is interesting. There was a balance of power between communism and capitalism, two rivals. Cold War was a common front, harmonious economic, military, and political relationships, and we talked about the institutions that these nations combined created to create some world order. What has changed? What has changed is collapse of communism. Impact of that one is massive, we have not fully understood yet. Russia is still there as a major military power, some influence, but new communist countries have all become capitalist. While in European Soviet Union, when they collapsed, there was a revolution. Poland had a revolution, Russia had a revolution. The only nation that has made a great transition from communism to capitalism has been China. All they did was a very smart thing. The manifesto of the party itself, party did not change, but party's agenda was no longer the Marxist thinking, it was embracing capitalism, and they have made a transition, which is why China has succeeded so very well, politically at least, if not in infrastructure and industries. Rapid aging of advanced nations, which I already talked about. Biggest change has happened in the world because of the smartphones and social media. Today, The largest nation in the world is no longer China, 1.3 billion, India about 1.4 billion, but it's a nation called Facebook. 2.3 billion, something like that. You add WhatsApp, which just crossed 2 billion yesterday or today. These are nations standing by themselves with no governance or self-governance. They ride all the typical jurisdictions that we fight battles for, and they are more influential today than government policies. And there is a worry about them, whether they will rule the world the way they want to do it, and what happens to the typical political process, whether it's a democracy or it is basically communist thinking. New trade regime is coming, rather than having the tariffs and all the things, WTO was created. Terrorism has gone global. It was not limited to Afghanistan, between Taliban on the one hand or Al-Qaeda, which is more international, but it is everywhere now. It is coming to home in most advanced Western countries. It is coming to home in China, Russia, and India, obviously. And there are new leaders now. And these leaders are very different compared to previous politically elected leaders. Prime Minister Modi is quite different than the previous administrative leaders or prime ministers. So is the case of President Trump in America, very different leader. There is a parallel between the rise of President Trump and the rise of Ronald Reagan from California, which are the whole presentation, very fascinating parallels, but they are very different. They are not the traditional politicians. They are out there as disruptors in some fashion, as we have seen what has happened to the US bureaucracy, if not US policy, and of course President Xi Jinping in China. These are new set of leaders thinking somewhat differently than traditionally what we thought political process will take place. So we have a new triad power now. The new triad power is India, United States and China. Japan being relegated by China in a significant way. India is coming along out of nowhere, and the reason is that these are the three largest consumer markets in the world for any product. Cell phones. I was involved in the commercialization of cellular telephone technology on behalf of Bell Labs, AT&T, 1983. We got outside consultants to give us expert opinion. The message was that there will be no more than 950,000 subscribers by the year 2000, 25 years out. They were slightly wrong by a few billion. Isn't that interesting? They never thought of China. Largest growth of cell phone has come from China first, now India. Smartphones, India is going from feature phones to smartphones. New high level of networks like 4G, 5G is coming. Today the leader in the world in the digital technology is not America, but it is China and everything. You have to go to China to experience, like an Alibaba platform, there is no cash transaction. We are just thinking about how Amazon Go can do transactions. Alibaba leads in everything compared to whatever we do in this country. I think we have to realize that there is a rise of other nations as good or strong as we are here around here. Now the issue is that consumer markets, defense is another major driver among all these three nations. So with the Trump policy, we have now expanded enormously into the defense industry in terms of how many trillions we will spend. Security is the third area, homeland security primarily, will drive the future relationships. Now here is the problem, the harmony is not there. China comes with a communist legacy, their thinking is different. What is the role of the institution versus the individual? We allow internet to be a free medium, no controls by anybody, no censorship, no regulation. China doesn't believe in that. They believe in fact that citizens have no rights as we think they have for free speech the way we do it. They think it's harmful to the society. India is in the debate at the same time. So they don't see the world the same way. We are in America primarily what I call not only capitalist but cowboy capitalism. We trust the free marketplace first, and only if it fails then somebody else bails out or there is some regulation that creates an industry. So the three are not on the same page, unlike the previous triad power. Complicating this one is that the relationship between China and America is deteriorating more and more and more as China begins to become true rival, in fact, on a global basis to America. And in the process, the relationship between China and India becoming now very interesting what to do. US and India relationship has become positive and stronger, especially in recent times for the last 2 administrations. And therefore, will the new world have a new order or a disorder? And here are the things which are creating disorder in the world. And then what can India do? China emerges as an economic superpower, as I mentioned. There is a discord among the traditional allies, which are the NATO alliances, for example, is under tremendous pressure. The allies were Western European countries were allied, obviously, with America. Today, that harmony is just not there. The Brexit that has happened in England, Brexit will become basically a major beneficiary, Great Britain, by aligning with America and the British Commonwealth countries, and maybe China to some extent, distancing from the continental Europeans. There is no trust between the French, the Germans, and the British, for example. And this country is not trying to bring them together. So there's a whole discord among traditional allies and alliances that America has. Populism everywhere. Have you seen how incumbents are thrown out because people are just unhappy? And they don't care who they elect. And this discord is not limited in foreign countries, but it is also growing in this country. You saw in one town, at a small level, but that's a microcosm, they elected the most friendly dog as the mayor of the city. They don't trust anybody else. It's fascinating to watch how changes are. So populism movement is taking place all over the world, which is creating a discord. Asia-centric economic and military pivot. The world is definitely becoming Asia-centric, not only from markets and supplies, but also military power. And this country has to fight 3 fronts. The NATO, which is the Russian front, the Middle East, which is where quagmire totally, and now rise of the Asia. And no nation can fight 3 fronts. They have to decide what to do. This is in a dilemma, which is why the India relationship with US on military side becomes very significant for America. In fact, I've made a statement which may be an exaggeration. America needs India more today than India needs America. Fascinating. So that's what I'm researching for. You have the rise of the new middle class in emerging markets. Most of the consumers in India were primarily, or in China, homemade things, unorganized sector, unbranded products. Today, everybody wants to have a branded atta in India, branded dal, for example, branded everything. Nobody wants to do anything at home. The next generation, the biggest outsourcing is not the IT services in India by American companies, but at home. They have forgotten the young generation does not know how to cook, clean, or raise a child even. To me, that's creating an enormous market out there, because when we buy raw materials, it's not added to the calculation of the economic GDP, as it is called. And you see political and social acrimony globally. I mean, social media is incredibly inflaming the divergence as opposed to convergence of thought, etc. It's not civil anymore. People are using 4-letter language, 4-letter word languages, and people are actually calling other people by name, which is the civilities going away in the social media environment. You know, we do content analysis for data analytics on text messages, and sometimes you feel like, my God, this is not the world that you grew up with. There's no civility anymore, especially in digital world, which is very fascinating. So I just will add one more quickly. There is a capital market, surprisingly, is in turmoil. This decade will be no longer stock market or debt market as it is called, it will be the private capital. Private equity will rule the world for one whole decade. And the largest organization today in terms of private equity base is, as you know, Blackstone, $7 trillion. Second largest are all the sovereign funds. They will call the shots more and more than the stock market. So next area is, and I know my time is up, so I'll go much faster. Why India is destined to become strategic globally. Both China and India consider, both China and the United States consider India to be strategic for their own future. Both are trying very hard to see whether India should align with China or India should align. And it's a very delicate position the Indian leadership is in. India has all the ingredients to really succeed in the future, but we're in search of a recipe for global positioning. Like anything else, recipe matters. What is a recipe? A recipe is a vision about the future. And you cannot delegate the vision to somebody else. The leader has to aspire and say, this is what the nation will be all about, as Singapore has done, for example. That Hong Kong did at one time. China is doing it the same way. It is not a democratic process in terms of visioning the future. It is something somebody says, this is where we will go. Vision is all about positioning for the future. Vision must be aspirational. People rally behind, they say, yes, it makes sense. Should be proactive rather than reacting to the environment. You are basically managing the environment or taking advantage of the opportunities that the environment gives you. And it has to have a mission capable, which means deliver within time and budget as estimated. So what are the India's enviable ingredients? I find fascinating. Big consumer market, every product, by the way, not limited to cell phones, but appliances. Everything is, in fact, primarily, India is the second largest or the third largest, sometimes number one in the world. That's attracting enormous investment into India by foreign companies such as, for example, Walmart, Amazon. Now the question is, will India be able to accommodate them? What are the political fallouts when you have a foreign enterprises come to the country? What happens to domestic competitors? Typical debate that goes on, but it's a very key area. More importantly, I found that all of a sudden Indians all over the world, including India, have a positive self-image. I can do it. There was a defeatist movement under the license Raj. People said, there is nothing I can do. I'm constrained by policy. How can I get out of the country? Today people would rather stay in India or even have people who have been abroad go back to India because they see opportunities, especially entrepreneurship. And I have a very strong message. Ultimately, the real advantage of a nation is entrepreneurship. Nothing else that matters. Good entrepreneurs create enormous value, wealth for everybody else, as we have seen in this room itself. But it's very possible, and entrepreneurship is the DNA of Indians. As it is in China, which has been suppressed under communism, but is coming out now. So you will see more and more entrepreneurship leading nations like India, China, Africa, surprisingly, and to some extent Latin America. We have a large digital talent. So when the government announced Make in India as a major initiative, it was manufacturing based, but Make in India is real in terms of professional services. All foreign companies, especially in America, are hubbing their resources in India, not only for digital technologies, but also for professional services like accounting services, legal services, special effects studios, just goes on and on. Hyderabad is the new Bangalore now. Have you seen massive capacity invested by companies like, let's say, Oracle, companies like Microsoft, Facebook, everybody is investing on the, because that's where do you go to get gold? Wherever there is a gold mine. So the real asset of India is the digital talent in a scale that no other country is able to do it except maybe China, but China people are cautious because of the intellectual property rights. Now R&D is going in a big way, research and development centers are being created, so this is a key advantage. I have been advocating with this government that most hidden asset is Indian global diaspora. Indians, wherever they have settled very nicely, they have integrated, contributed to the nation where they went, rather than being militant, for example, or taking advantage of the nation, who is your second home. It creates an enormous soft power of India and India's image. Can Indian government leverage that, not only by recognizing them, but also by having to contribute back to the nation? Not coming back, but staying where you are and connecting in many ways, which is happening. you seen the power of Indian management today, Silicon Valley? There is nobody except Indian CEOs. Last one is IBM. I could not believe that Indian managers are rising to that level in foreign multinationals, not just Indian multinationals. So I'm doing a lot of research as to what is it about Indian managers, the way they are trained in colleges there, the way they are groomed by the Indian companies, and they come here and become the CEO of some of the largest corporations in the world, especially in digital technology. We have a deep diplomatic reach, and they have not leveraged it very well. My recommendation to the government is that the diplomats here should be actually become the ambassadors, brand ambassadors. It's not just passport, stamping, control, and crisis management, but the ambassador or the consul general actually should be meeting with non-Indian diaspora and local people, network with them, and talk about the positive things India is all about. So the media that has one skin, you can counterbalance from the other side. So, and there's a growing soft power of India rising now, worldwide by the way, not limited here. Japan is now allowing Indians to settle as citizens. Very rare change. Isn't that interesting? They were quite anxious, so it's happening. So I'm very pleased. Surprisingly, there's an old Russian connection during the Cold War. Mrs. Gandhi aligned with Soviet Union. That's very strategic for India's future. You have to make sure that Russia, at the same time as America, both become strong allies, which is very paradoxical because the two are rivals, otherwise India can unite them. And again, last thing that India has, which we have not really recognized to the level we do in America, for example, that is to talk about strong military. If you look at the history of our military, it is one of the best military in everything. When there's a dogfight between the Indian pilots and the American pilots, Indians win all the time. But they're amazed. When there's a Navy warship fights in the Pacific Ocean, Indian Navy commanders outmaneuver primarily the Western navies, Australian Navy, etc., which we don't hear in the press as much. It's fascinating. And I just remember that Indian space program is one of the best programs in the world. Done at 1/10 the cost. They have done more feats into the space program than most other nations have been able to do, including the US. Surprisingly, there's a huge respect of the Indian ISRO, Indian Space Program Agency. So how do we reposition the nation to leverage the future? Opportunities that are coming in. Primarily, India was organized as an isolated domestic economy, license Raj, protectionism. No foreign multinationals can take the country because of the colonial history. It is now changing or has to change to become integrated, globally integrated economy. And the other one is that it has primarily regional diplomacy, the SAARC nations as we call them, around our own subcontinent. How can India become diplomatically strong worldwide? And it is happening, surprisingly. I've been very amazed how much India is respected in the diplomatic corps now. They were always talented people, maybe recognized in the United Nations, but not country by country. But today, we do have a prime minister who goes out of his way. Here is a person who pleases the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, Angela Merkel, very different personalities, very different ideologies, to Cameron government, the conservative, which obviously led to Brexit and all that, to two presidents who are totally diametrically opposed, Obama here and Trump now, for example, with equal ease. Whether it's a Chinese Xi Jinping, they meet informally, or whether in fact it is Japanese Prime Minister Abe, they are friends with each other. It's mind-boggling to see how one person can accommodate different personalities as well as ideologies of world leaders and be comfortable. They are comfortable with him, which gives you enormous informal access to power and influence. So I'll just go, again I'm taking longer time, so let me go a little faster. So how can India become a respected, globally integrated economy? My first message to India has been that we need to embrace in India global standards, not local standards in quality. Japanese did that, Koreans did that, and they become very strong branded products. India can do it in India, except we don't have motivation to do it. We still believe in this informal economy, but if you embrace global standards, then you'll be able to offer the products worldwide, not just Indian market. Indian market is big, many of these products. In automobile components, small cars, India is the largest in the world. But it has to meet standards of the world. All these large automobile makers, they're called OEMs, often go to India for components and they take them globally, so you have to have global standards. Pharmaceuticals, they're just the examples, and processed foods, surprisingly, we are quite good, but it needs global standardization in terms of nutrition, display of the nutrition, ingredients and all that stuff. Become global hub for professional talent. This is happening already. So you go to India, not only to serve Indian market, but take the manpower or talent of India to serve the European market, Chinese market, whatever it is. Here is the irony. India is the largest diamond cutter in the world. 60% of the world diamonds are made in India, mostly in Surat area, maybe Bombay. There is no contender. Because we have got the skill set, we get the raw materials properly from different sources. We are boycotted, but today it's open market from getting the raw materials. The largest diamond retailer in America is Walmart. So it's very possible that Walmart can buy diamonds from India, not only sell to North America here, Canada they are strong in Mexico, but also to China. Think about the day when Indian diamonds can be bought by the Chinese consumers with complete acceptance as we buy Chinese-made products like consumer electronics or microwave ovens in India. To me, that's a clear balancing act that can be done only if we have sort of the global standards and creating brands. Become a second global sourcing destination. China, everybody wants to diversify, especially now with the typical virus problem, even more diversification. Vietnam is taking advantage. India, people are searching India as a second sourcing destination, so we de-risk from China. The world wants to de-risk from China. And soft power through development of globally admired brands. Japanese did that. They were laughing stock. Cheap goods, low price. They decided it's a national agenda to create standards for export, JETRO, and basically began to see brand names like Sony dominate the world at one time, Toyota dominates the world today with great acceptance. There are many Japanese companies whose brands are worldly admired for whatever they do. I think India can do the same thing. So what Japan did, Korea followed, China is doing the same thing. You will be buying Chinese brand names, not made in China by a foreign company, because China is able to today offer products with any quality, low quality, medium quality or high quality. So I have to move faster, I'm sorry. Speed up digital India. This is the biggest change in India will be through digital technology, not through policy or even through free markets. So rural reach. Today with a smartphone, even a feature phone, I can reach. Aadhaar platform, which is what they have done through biometric thing, 1.2 billion people. There is no other nation who has done that kind of a biometric identification. America, we are still struggling to go from the social security card to the next generation. And so far there has been no hacking publicly that we know. Aadhaar platform is just like Apple platform, much bigger. It's just like Microsoft platform, much bigger. How can India use that platform to create commercial, sort of a information highway as opposed to physical highway or railroads? How can we clone or embed entrepreneurs and companies over that platform? They are debating in this one, so it's very possible. Encourage foreign direct investment in India for global markets. So people come there not only to serve Indian market, but export from India, just as they did in China. I think this movement is happening in many areas, as I mentioned in the presentation. Provide economic and social incentives to business enterprises for global presence. In other words, what can Indian government do to encourage, let's say, state enterprises, rather than thinking about Indian market only and to serve Indian population, can they do it abroad? There is a life insurance corporation, for example. Indian Railways has actually done that by managing railways of 14, 15 countries, like Dubai at one time, Eastern Africa. There is a talent out there, but we have never thought about doing it on a global basis as opposed to domestic basis. And as I mentioned before, everything is digitized, digitized, digitized. This is going to be the massive transformation in India. Invest in management education for diplomats. This is already happening now. Diplomats come through a different way of screening. They have the administrative services examination or foreign service examination or military examination. They have no idea about management skills and they have to manage people and budgets. So now diplomats are going through 3 weeks, 4 weeks program at IIM, Ahmedabad, IIM, Bangalore, etc. to get them the vocabulary of management, if nothing else. And that's happening right now, which is, I think, fascinating. Deepen diplomatic relationship with G7 nations. In other words, how can India be at the table in France, Germany, all the 6, 7 big powers, which I think again is happening. So I'm getting more optimistic that this is likely to happen in the future. I will go much faster. I'm sorry to take more time. Next one is very interesting. Offer Indian retired diplomats for track 2. There's always an informal negotiations going on when you have formal tensions. Let's say between Iran and America, for example, or Syria and America, for example. Wherever there are tensions, always there is a track 2 negotiations behind the scenes. India is very capable of doing these things. Replace seniority with merit-based bureaucracy. This is going to be the toughest thing the government can do. Because we have a seniority rule in place, like the British system, and now they're trying very hard to bypass early retirement, etc. in the government businesses, but it's going to be heavy resistance. And engage with Russia and China. So let me just tell you the conclusion and I'll pick up any questions. There is a new geopolitical order. The old order is gone, new is transitioning coming in, but it's going through turbulent times. The traditional leaders and institutions are struggling to maintain world order. This has generated opportunity for new leadership. India is destined to become strategic globally. India has enviable ingredients, but needs a recipe to take advantage of the world order. I thank you.
Ankit and Sanjay are moving with the cards. If anybody has questions, please give them. We need the card to be written. Sanjay, can you bring a card here, this side? And while waiting for that to happen, I do have a question.
Yes.
Long-term effects of trade war with China, India, Turkey, etc., etc. So long-term effects of trade war with multiple countries. Nobody wants to know that.
The things that are changing is from a multilateral trade will become more and more bilateral, including free trade agreements. So what is called TAP, the whole Pacific is dead on arrival, which was 11 nation consolidation, creating a big market. In the current system, where there are more free trade, America became a loser. 10 countries alone has 90% of surplus in their 10th one is India. So India is in the battleground now. Highest one, of course, was Canada, Mexico because of NAFTA, and that is revised into USMCA, whatever they call it now. China was another big one which they are negotiating, and they found that unlike Japan, under Reagan administration, the negotiations are not going to be as easy. Chinese will stand up to their power, and they will try to figure out how to do it. I think the transition is taking place. Most resistant toward bilateral trade agreements will be Europeans. Germans and America cannot see eye to eye, that's my point. It will be much tougher negotiations with China. It's a question of time. It's possible that if President Trump gets re-elected, this will be done very positively at the end. But if President Trump does not get re-elected and there's a new government comes in, everything would be again in a scramble, start all over again, because many of these things are deep initiatives in place. So in the short run, it will create enormous disorder, but in the longer term will come out quite well. It's more like balancing trade as opposed to not doing trade at all. And there's a weapon they figure out, which is the tariffs. All economists agree tariff is bad for everybody. It's not good in terms of margins. It will collapse some countries and companies in the process. But it's a question of policy. I think there will be more trade, more balance, which means Chinese will buy more American goods, India will buy more American goods, because India has a surplus for professional services. India's largest importer is from China. China sells more goods to India, and the debate is that why are you buying from China and not from America? When we give you so much of surplus in your professional services, IT services, etc., there's a typical debate going on.
Mahesh Bhai Sampath says, excellent presentation, and his question is, are you currently advising government of India?
No, there is no formal advising whatsoever in India. I use, surprisingly, my presentations as a way of influencing. This Indian government, this government now listens very, very well on ideas that come from any place. They pick it up and they implement it. So I don't need to have a formal advising role. You can still influence the government if they're willing to listen properly. And there's a Chinese saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will show up. I love that.
Anil Bhai Desai asked, American economy is $1,750,000,000 on medical field.
Yes.
Why India should be exploring this medical field?
The healthcare is going to become a growing sector with aging of the population. It used to be only 8% of the GDP in 1980, it is about 13-14%. There is no end to this thing. Surprisingly, the biggest market from a healthcare viewpoint will be China. China is aging much faster than they thought, going the Japan way, because they have one-child policy for 2-3 generations now, and they are suffering. And it's very important to understand the rise of China from a healthcare need viewpoint. So many countries are racing to come out with the next generation of breakthrough medicine for the world market, not for the domestic market. That's the key change I see, whether it's medical instruments or pharmaceutical products or healthcare delivery. American numbers are staggering, I must tell you. Out of the 1.4 trillion that we spend in healthcare, about 15 or 35% goes in saving the last 1 year of life. Additional 15% goes in saving the first year of life. And they have to make some hard decisions. Is it worth saving that last 1 year of life? If you are terminally ill, should you prolong the life? And there's a debate going on between the moral values of the culture and the country and the faith and the economic and the public policy. Same thing, saving the infant's child, right? So it's a hard decisions government has to make, and that will be the key debate going on. In fact, this election, healthcare and the health cost will become more dominant in terms of who presents the right idea, and people latch on to that one. It's a major, major issue in America.
I think as a doctor I will say, Select should be brought to America. The only religion who talks about how to pass away. Next question, Kishore Panchani. How robotics will affect India?
AI and robotics.
artificial intelligence and robotics. I'm doing some research in that one. I find fascinating that every technology, when it is trying to substitute labor with machinery, the value of labor goes up. There is no surplus. So in agriculture, the worst place to be is agricultural bonded labor. There is no life. There is no savings. You are there, they give you room and board, but you are working 24/7, and there is a lot of exploitation. Every place in the world. And therefore, going there to a manufacturing, in a factory, the wages went up. From manufacturing, then it goes up into knowledge economy. So if you take the average wage per hour, let's say manufacturing is $25, $30, the digital technology, knowledge age is about $55, $60, and people are raising to $90. So artificial intelligence will allow us as humans to aspire to do bigger and better things, more mundane things which are hazardous, we delegate to robots. Some of the best new robots created very affordable are in India at IIT Bombay. I've been sort of mentoring the project very nicely. This is where you go into the oil tanks or the oil storage tanks, very hazardous. Humans cannot go inside to clean it. Go into mines, the underground mines. Military, detecting EDS or whatever they call it, the device primarily. It's exciting to watch how much affordable innovations are taking place in emerging markets. There's a reverse innovation in the process.
Thank you. Another healthcare, Bharati said, how can healthcare transition can become a model for US healthcare?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, the Indian model you're talking about? Indian model is very different. Almost 80 to 90% is paid by the family. There is no healthcare insurance to the level that we have here. I mean, here almost is given. 93% or 92% of Indian labor today is all contract work with no benefits.
Thank you. Sanjay and Ankit, you may sit down. We're going to hand out the question that we have here and then going to stop there.
Can I just add on the healthcare?
No, we're not done yet, so.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to add, in the American healthcare, I can tell you our forecast. Our healthcare will go the same way as dental plans.
Oh my goodness, nothing.
50% is paid by the user or the patient, only 50% by any insurance, no matter what you do. It's a matter of time before the co-payment will rise dramatically. No matter who president comes in, it's a matter of time. And that will be a key battleground. So I do expect by 2030 or so, we will be starting to pay ourselves more and more part of the healthcare.
Ila Mehta is asking, role of women in future India. Loaded.
Women always were the backbone of any nation, any place. But we did not recognize them for what they have done. Let's say homemaking is not that easy. Raising children is not that easy. Question is, do you want to make this into a commercial option? Give them opportunities. India is very blessed. Surprisingly, you find that despite traditional culture, we are able to accommodate within that culture the rise of women leaders. Not just in social work, as we find quite a lot, but also in enterprises. The only country ideologically was Soviet Union and China, communist. They did not recognize gender diversity. They simply said, I need both men and women in the farm, the factory, and the military. So they basically went away from the traditional cultural restrictions and the boundaries about the role of women to immediately make them employable in some fashion outside the house. In America, it's a necessity. There is no way in a metro area you can survive with single wage earner. The spouse has to work by necessity. So now we have a dual income. So problem arises when you have a dual income family. Unfortunately, the shortage is not as much money you are surviving, but time. There's a time shift and time shortage.
Next.
I'm sorry, I always give long answers for short questions.
Since this question came from my sister,
Yes.
this by none of my sister will ever concede their superiority. Madhuben or my sister Ila. This is in their DNA for generations. That is why you are marketing Guru and written a lot about color and its binding effect on consumers. Yet woman's superiority remains unexplained about color. When man sees purple, woman sees lavender, plum, orchid, violet, magenta, indigo, slate blue and few more.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
When man identifies 11 color groups, woman wants at least 141 HTML color spectrum out of thousands of colors. That is why when you see on TV HTML standard, there is 141 colors. What about my sister hearing a lot of noise around home at night? Ability to listen bigger spectrum of frequency sound belongs to woman.
Yes.
What about smelling? What about handwriting? And I will not talk about stress. I had a few heart attacks. You had your share. So Jagdish Bhai, while women in America fights for equality, we have to live with their superiority in our lives.
Oh, I totally agree. It took me almost 30 years or 40 years of marriage to realize this. At the 40th wedding anniversary, we have been married 57 years. First thing I told is that the best victory in marriage is surrender.
So this is why my sister Madhuben, my sister Leela, or my wife Rika will never give up their superiority in their areas. They do have that extra sixth sense.
Absolutely. And all the five senses are more finer discriminatory than our senses for men, no question about that. So please, my men friends in the audience, best victory in marriage is surrender.
Last 4 questions, and before that I have a personal comment. 7 years ago when we got married, my son advised me, happy wife, happy life. So true. Harkishan Vasa is asking, India has a lot of potential. However, what about lack of infrastructure and common concern of corruption in India?
Corruption is easier to answer because once you put digital technology, you suppress the corruption. Which is why all the government bureaus are going online. Which is why our tax collections are better now. It is no longer that local inspector or whoever the tax officer is there as the negotiating point anymore. You saw in the airlines at one time before the computerization called, reservation systems, computerized reservation systems, the local guy at the gate would have all the discretion. Today, I'm in the order, priority for upgrade, whatever it is, wait list, he has no choice to follow. So I do believe that corruption would be more managed, it cannot be eliminated through nothing but digitization, online everything primarily, and it will create more collections. The first one is more difficult.
Another Jag, I assume is Jagdish Purohit, is asking, listen and admire your speech, how the government and other companies adopting your views? Do you have any comments about that?
I've been very blessed to say that either in the books that I write or in the articles sometimes, there's more receptivity. Especially the book I wrote on what I call self-destructive habits of good companies. They destroy themselves. And I identified 7 bad habits of good companies. Title should have been, but there is a very good book called The 7 Good Habits of Effective People. And the 2 publishers didn't want to get into legal battles. I changed the title. It is in 14 languages. That's a huge impact. When an organization is unable to change or unwilling to change, when its external environment has changed dramatically, they're likely to go down. Who would have imagined General Electric collapsing the way it is collapsing? Or Sears Roebuck. I mean, there were giants in the time. Kodak in cameras. companies like digital corporations, brilliant, and even companies like IBM are struggling right now. That's unthinkable because they are unable to change in changing times or unwilling to change one or the other two conditions. And the biggest problem is more often than not, companies are locked into their paradigm, so they have a denial of new realities. So nobody thought in the taxi business Uber will transform them or disrupt them, which is true. Uber makes it so easy, it's addictive almost, my view. Taxis is so hard. Banking is going through the same thing. It's so hard to open an account. Online is coming in. So online is a bigger transformation, it's a new reality. Nobody figured out Chinese will have large enterprises and there will be global players. That's creating a huge change. I'm just finishing a book on that one about the rise of new global rule of three. And again, it's incredible to see, so companies are listening now.
Last two questions, and actually for this question, I'd like person to rise. Aarti Kausal Chopra.
Oh yeah.
Please. Her question is, how do we engage General X, millennials and youngest General Z to transition from traditional leadership and institutions to more new age, socially conscious institutions and leadership, especially K-12 and college education?
I find opposite of what my thinking might be. Today, to get into the top university, it is not enough to get good GPA, grade point average, not enough to do excellent on AP classes, which shows you're a brainy guy or person, but actually doing the community work. If you want to get into Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Carnegie Mellon, whatever they have to show you that you are now doing community work. Because of that involvement, actually the new generation is more socially conscious. Let me give you an example. Today, young people, especially from private universities, but happening with Berkeley, UCLA, all of them, when they are interviewing, they say, why would I work for you? What are you doing to the environment or for the environment? They say, it's not my career. And by the way, in Singapore, market is so tight, you do all the recruiting, by interviewing and resumes and all the stuff, you hire the person, within one day, he or she says, I resign. And you ask them why? I don't like it here. Think about the cost of just recruiting. In one day they're gone. Do you have another job? No, I don't. How will you survive? Well, I have mom and dad to take care. Remember, every high school kid when he leaves your home will insist that keep their room as it is. Don't convert it into a gym or office space, right? So this is yo-yo generation. They will leave and come back, like yo-yo used to play. So unfortunately.
I have a comment in the same breath. I think we are developing compliance building society currently. What we need to develop is conscience building society.
Yes.
Children need to know what is right and wrong rather than don't do this and don't do that. Anyway, I'm getting to the last question.
I'm sorry to comment and take this opportunity, being on the podium, my view.
Yes.
And my view is that I think the parents are making children too dependent.
Yes.
I don't know why parents serve the children so much. Rather make them independent, say, you shall make your bed. I will give you an anecdote. I should talk about it 15, 20 years ago because of demographic work. I mean, in this country, I'm talking about the typical American kids as opposed to of Indian origin. The kid is messy. His or her room is so messy. Leave me alone, kind of an attitude. So I suggested that every child in high school must put 2 years of compliant, necessary duty at McDonald's. We have no military anymore, right? Draft. That kid will wake up at 4:45 in the morning, will go to the store, put a cap on McDonald's, will be whistling and smiling, cleaning the floor, while his room is messy. My question is, room is messy because parents allowed that to happen. It's the early childhood habits we create among children. You cannot do it at teenage level. It starts when they are infants or toddlers. That's the key difference. Today's generation is very different from that viewpoint. So when they go to college, totally lost. We get kids from India to study in America, in my college for example, about 50 or so. All the servants have taken care. They have not taken the shoe when they drop it outside. Servant takes the shoe. They don't know how to pick up the shoe and put it in the right place in the dormitory. So I fault parents, unfortunately. Yeah. It's not the case. I'm sorry.
The last question here from Manjari ji and comment. Congratulations to you for your award. Your presentation was very informative and inspiring. My question is, population explosion of India, is it still growing after 1.4 billion people?
Population growth has declined. In the urban markets, it is below the replacement rate. It is 1.98 or even less. Numbers are staggeringly becoming less because you can't afford more children. You have a space problem, rental problem, hut problem, wherever you have your shelter. So everybody, including working class people, are saying we cannot afford to have more than 1 or 2 children. So it's dropping much more significantly than we thought. There's no replacement rate. Rural is where the children were an asset. If you had 4 sons in your village, in a farming community, you were like king of the town because you can farm more, you can use more animals like bullocks or horses, whatever they are. Children were an asset. Even in rural population today, children are not an asset. That's the whole point. With education, children are aspiring to do bigger and better, and parents want them to do. So that's the key change. So even the rural population in India, the population is relatively growing at a slower pace. It used to be 4.1 children per woman in India, let's say in the 60s or 70s. Rural was much larger in the process, it is now much lower. So population decline is happening by economic pressures, more education opportunities, Akshay Patra types of, educational institutions motivating people to do more education, get out of this insane poverty level or whatever it is. So it's declining quite a lot.
Thank you very much, Professor. Please. We have just 2 more minutes, please. I really appreciate your presence, your calmness and cooperation. We have the last thing I promised to do, and that is word of thanks by our President, Dr. Jag Shah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our humble apologies to all other questions we just could not get in the interest of time. Really sorry.
If I have to sum up what Jagdish Bhai's life lesson is, he says, don't wish for it, work for it. Right? I want to take this opportunity to thank you all, and especially I want to thank Jagdish Bhai and Madhuben for helping us to make this event possible. So please give a big round of applause to Jagdish Bhai and Madhuben. I want to thank Sarva Mangal Family Trust, Manu Bhai and Rika Ben for sponsoring this event. Thank you very much. Our special guests and dignitaries, Mayor Naresh Bhai Solanki, Padma Shri Kanpat Bhai Patel. By the way, he is afforded or awarded honorary PhD by Cal Poly Pomona. So please give it to me. Also we have from San Francisco, Prem Bhai and Vipin Bhai. Thank you very much. Photography, Prakash, doing wonderful job, so thank you very much. Audio video system, Narendra Bhai, Salil Bhai, Andy, for providing the best services. Jagdish Bhai had, when I talked to him, he told me, do we have a good audio video system? What do you think now? He was a little bit reluctant that wherever I go, there is a problem. I promised him he would not have problem here. I want to thank all the speakers, those who spoke here, sticking to the time, so we are able to finish it on time. So thank you very much. Nitin bhai, thank you for doing such a wonderful job in conducting the event.
Five more. One more. Sir, 1 minute. I need 5 plus my inches closer. I didn't know. JS Mane ke we are in the 6th or 7th row. I have seen 5, 6. Plus 9. આ લોકો રાઈડ આપી તો મારે કંઈ કરવું પડે ને આને આપી ને તો પછી મારે ઘરમાં લઈ જાય Good sir, how are you?
Benny, that's okay. Good. My son. El, how are you? That's good you came. Should have got my kids.
Maybe 200.
No. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but that's not even that. I am okay, but you know who yeah, he has choose that cake, but doesn't matter. You'll take it. How are you? JCSC, friend of
I'm Jay Shah. So you were at USC with the Jain. કેમ છો? અરે તમે ભાભી થાવ તમારે મારી લાઈટર પાસ
must have posted lately. 6 મહિના 3 મહિના 6 મહિના
Croatia and
हमारा भाई बहन बैठा
Good afternoon. This is kind of 2 minutes warning before we start. So if you all get comfortable, I'll appreciate it. While we wait for everybody to settle down, please keep your mobiles on silent mode. And for the questions in the end, we're going to pass out cards somewhere in between the program, and we will really respect to write your name and question and hand over. And then Manubhai and myself, we will kind of scrutinize and ask questions. And please note that the intent is questions from us and answer from the MOD professor. And if you need any interaction, that needs to happen kind of after we finish. There will be some time when Professor said will be around after we finish our session. Give you another minute to act. Let me make sure that I turn myself on.
Thank you.
Yay! All right. Narendra Bhai, I assume you're ready with the prayer, but
I want to thank my executive committee and board of members for supporting me and helping me out to have this successful event, and our Jain Central community. So thanks to all of them. And my better half. Without her support, I cannot spend this time here. So, Ramila. And last but not the least, I want to say, जो सूरज न होता तो दिन न होता, जो चांद न होता तो रात न होती, फूल न होता तो चमन न होता, आप लोग न होते तो ये महफिल न होती. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.